Let's begin chapter number 13 from your history book of grade 11, and the name of the chapter is Rise of Militarism in Japan, that is 1919 to 1941. And as per your syllabus, we have to start from why did Japan become a military state? During the 1920s, it was seen that the democratic form of governments which were formed after the First World War in countries like Germany and Italy failed to solve the problems and desires of the people. There were a number of causes in case of Japan. First is the democracy was opposed by influential group. From the beginning, an influential sector or the section of the society like the army and the conservatives did not like the democratic form of the government. They were strong in the upper house and of the parliament and in the PVC council. So the army was very keen to interfere in China, which was torn by civil war and strengthened Japan's economy hold over the country. This group was strong enough to topple the government in 1927. Next is the corruption among the politicians. A number of politicians were corrupt and were accepted and they used to accept the bribes regularly from the big business houses. Sometimes fighting broke out in the lower houses for charge and counter charges of corruption. This system did not increase or inspire the parliamentary prestige in the eyes of the people. So, number three is the trade boom ended. The great economic crisis of 1929 affected Japan, and very much as the other countries raised high traffics to protect their own products. Actually, America reduced the import of Japanese raw silk. Price of raw silk had fallen drastically after the Wall Street crash. America drastically reduced the import of raw silk. This was a great blow to the Japanese because most of the Japanese farmers depended on the production of raw silk for their livelihood. Next is situation in Manchuria. In this situation, Japan wanted to preserve their economic advantages as in Manchuria. Now, Japanese army invaded and captured Manchuria in September 1931 without any permission from the government. The Chinese forces were easily dispersed and the whole of the Manchuria was overrun. The Japan set up a puppet state under the name of Manchukuo. That is, Japan also recognized Manchukuo as an independent state, but actually it became, you can say, subservient to Japan. America strongly protested against Japan's action in Manchuria and refused to recognize as a Manchukuo. Manchuria's rich natural resources attracted the attention of Japan. Now, Manchuria, though included within Chinese Republic, enjoyed local autonomy. China now made a strong protest to the League of Nations against Japan's attack on Manchuria. So, we will find that in the League, that Japan withdrew from the membership as they were getting opposed. Japan withdrew herself from the League in 1933 and continued her control over Manchuria. As their existence, you can say, as there existed difference of the opinion between England and America over the Manchuria issue, League failed to take an effective measure against Japan. So Japan's further, you can say, advancement in China in 1933. The success of Manchuria expedition encouraged Japanese imperialistic aspiration. She now wanted to establish her political supremacy and economic leadership in the Far East as well as in Asia. In the meantime, China became strong under the rule of Chiang Kai-shek, and Japan apprehended that she might be excluded from Manchuria. In 1933, Japan began to advance into the rest of Northeast China, over which she had no claim whatsoever. So, Japan now closed the doors of China in the European parts. The policy which Japan adopted in 1934 or had been described as Japan's Monroe Doctrine. So, further invasion in China in 1937 and 38. Japan now entered into the anti-commentary pact with Germany and Italy in 1936, and thus Rome, Berlin, Tokyo axis came into being. This pact was directed against the Communist International, but by implication against the Soviet Union. The Japanese army then started invading other parts of China in July 1937. Thus, by the autumn of 1939, the Japanese army captured the cities of Shanghai, Nanking, and Hankow. In this situation, Chiang Kai-shek reached an understanding with the communists that both of them would cooperate with each other against Japanese invaders. With help of Russians, the spirit of the Chinese offered strong resistance. In the face the strong opposition, the Japanese army landed the Japanese army landed on south of China, quickly capturing Canton, and Chiang refused to surrender and accepted Japanese terms. So here again we are finding that the League of Nations again condemned the Japanese aggression in China. But the League had no power to react against Japan. Japan was no longer a member of this League of Nations. Okay, so we are finding that as Britain and France were preoccupied with Hitler in Europe, but they were not in the position to take much notice of China. So Japan tried to persuade America to lift the embargo, but America demanded Japanese withdrawal from China and Indochina, where the aggression where this was going on, General Tojo became the Prime Minister of Japan. War seemed inevitable, and next comes the attack on the Pearl Harbor in the 7th on 7 December 1941. Japan now decided to attack America, and an arch enemy of Japan, and in the Far East. There was no declaration of war. Japan now dropped bombs on 7 December 1941 on the American naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaiian Island, and inflicted serious loss of the American fleet. From the standpoint of planning, the war represented an opposition and the opportunity to compete Japanese New Order and build the greater Asian co-prosperity. The attack on Pearl Harbor was only a wager to force the US state to accept Japanese hegemony in Asia. In this situation, America declared war on Japan and joined the Allied powers. Thus, Sino-Japanese War ultimately merged in the Second World War. Hopefully you understood. Thank you.